Homesteading is a process. It isn't something that you do all at once. Little skills learned in the small pockets of time that you have add up. If you want to start homesteading, you don't need lots of land. It is best to start with what you have, right where you are. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lauren, and my family and I homestead on 2.5 acres in the middle of a suburban neighborhood. On my channel, I share tips and resources for new homesteaders who want to embrace a slower way of life. So whether you are waiting to buy your dream homestead or just wanting to become more self-sufficient, I'm diving into 12 do's and don'ts for new homesteaders to help you know exactly where to start. Before I get started, if you are not already subscribed to my channel, if you subscribe, I would love it, and you will then be the first to know when I release a new video each week. Let's get started with the do's and don'ts of homesteading for beginners. So I wanted to start off with the don'ts because then I can end on a more positive note. Now, I do want to say that I think these will depend on your situation and your circumstances, but I wanted to try to choose things that would be pretty much universal. So the first don't is one that I personally really struggle with. Don't compare your journey to someone else's. It is so hard when we live in an age with social media where people get to show the best parts of their life. And before social media existed, from what I've heard from talking to people in previous generations, we didn't know what everybody was doing all the time, and we certainly didn't just see the best moments. So it is really easy to get stuck in a comparison trap when you get on your phone and can just see so many things from what so many people are doing, and you don't know everybody's circumstances. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So from my personal experience, I share a lot of the successes on our homestead. There's a lot you don't see behind the scenes. I do try to share some of our failures, but you don't see when I am exhausted and questioning why we did this. You don't see when my kids are having a really hard day, because I don't want to show that online, but it happens, and it's hard to homestead and it's hard to parent on some days. So I just want to encourage you that if you are feeling like it's easy to compare your journey to someone else's, there's probably a lot going on behind the scenes that you don't see. And really what matters is focusing on your family and what is best for you in your current season. I'm saying this to myself too. So the next don't for new homesteaders is don't do everything at once. And this is so hard because I remember when we first moved to our property. It's 2.5 acres in the city. We're right in the middle of a suburban neighborhood, but our house and one of our neighbors has a couple of acres. And I remember when we first moved here and closed on our house, I wanted to do everything at once. And then we quickly got into it, and I realized how much time so many of these skills take. So if you're thinking about starting a garden, that's going to take up a lot of time. If you are wanting to get farm animals, you have to consider how much time it will take to care for them, to clean their cages, and to even go get the supplies that you need for them. So I recommend picking 1 or 2 big things to focus on, and then maybe picking a couple smaller things that you can work on throughout the year. And once you have gotten a good grasp on those things, you can move on to something else. So that's something that we have tried to do. It has made this a lot more sustainable than trying to take on everything all at once. So the next don't for new homesteaders is something that I don't think people talk about a lot, but I do think it's really important to address. So don't allow your homestead to ruin the relationships with the people, between the people in your family. So what I mean by this is when you take on more, you have to think about how that is going to impact the people who live within your home. Especially if you did not grow up learning these skills, it can be really easy for stressors to take root and for that to impact your relationship with your spouse or your kids if you have them. And so something that we do in our family is we talk about capacity quite a bit. and we'll reevaluate. So there have been times when we've taken on too much and it has been really stressful, and we have been impatient with each other or just feel like we're not being as present with our kids as we would like. And so we've talked about what we can do and have stepped back on certain things on our homestead, or have said we're not going to do this right now. We will take it on when we have the capacity for it, because the relationship that you have with the people in your home is so much more important than all of the homesteading skills that you want to learn. The next don't for new homesteaders is don't forego all conveniences, especially not at first. So if you're going from getting takeout multiple times a week, doing Walmart pickup, not having a garden at all, and then you all of a sudden decide that you're going to switch everything at once, that's really overwhelming and it's not very sustainable. So in my experience, it's better to make small changes over time, because you're a lot more likely to stick with them than if you try to do a complete overhaul of your life all at once. And I think it can be hard when you first start learning about some of these things, like about the ingredients in our food, for example, and you want to change it all at once. But I'm speaking from experience, you're a lot more likely to stick with it long term if you make these small changes instead of just trying to do an overhaul in one day. So for example, today I went and got takeout when I was out with my kids, but yesterday I spent hours working in my garden planting our own garlic for the year. So I think it's balance. It's about balance, and it's not about doing everything at once. Don't be hard on yourself if you still enjoy some modern day conveniences. They're not all bad. The next don't is don't try to be perfect. And if you're like me, a recovering perfectionist, it can be really hard to not have things exactly how you want them. So for example, this year we added a vegetable garden where we grew the majority of our produce. And last year I had planted some beautiful cottage inspired gardens. They'll get there over time, but that was the idea. And last year I was able to keep up with them more, but this year they were just completely overtaken with weeds. My garden had a lot of weeds, and as much as I tried, I wasn't able to keep up with it to the extent that I wanted to. But the reality is also that I have a lot of other things, a lot of other plates spinning, and it's not going to be perfect. But I was able to grow a lot of food for my family, a lot of food to share with neighbors and friends and other families. And I think that is more important ultimately than having a garden that looks like it should be on Pinterest. The next don't, and this is actually the last one, is don't spend above your means. And I think this can be something that you go into homesteading with really good intentions. I'm going to homestead on a budget, but it's so easy to get into it and just want to keep doing more and more, and those things add up quickly. So for example, this year we started our big no-till garden, and it required a lot of compost, and we spent almost $500 in compost alone. And doing a no-till garden is a lot more affordable than a lot of other gardening methods, but even doing that was a really significant upfront cost. So next year we will not have to spend that much. I might buy a little bit of compost, and then I'm trying to make my own so that we don't have to purchase it. But it would be really easy for us to spend all of our money on homesteading projects. And so we're trying to be really good stewards of what we have and to stretch our money as far as it will go. And this enables us to be able to do more projects. It just means that we might have to take them slow and not do everything at once. So before I move on to the things that you should do when starting out on your homesteading journey, I want to take a moment to tell you about an amazing resource for new homesteaders. The New Homesteader's Handbook is a handbook that is designed to walk you through homesteading skills that you can learn right where you are. Almost every skill in this book can be done without land. Most of them only require a little bit of space, and it will help you get started with gardening, preserving, cooking from scratch, backyard chickens, and so many more things. It's hard to tell you everything because we packed a lot into this guide. It's over 130 pages and it has over 20 recipes. So it's a homesteading guide and recipe book all in one. So I'm going to put a link to the new Homesteaders Handbook in the description box below. And I hope that this will really help you get started if you are new on your homesteading journey and give you the confidence that you need and direction for getting started right where you are. I'm going to end with 6 things that you should do as a new homesteader. So the first thing that I recommend is planning ahead. And this can mean a lot of different things. It could mean right now it's the winter at the time that I'm making this video. So last winter I was a very, very new gardener and I spent a lot of time reading books and planning and researching about my zone. And that work paid off so much in the spring because come spring, there are so many physical tasks that you have to do in your garden that I didn't have a lot of mental energy to research all of those things. And so I was really glad that I had put in the time and the effort over the winter. So I recommend planning ahead. This could also mean planning ahead financially and mapping out what things are going to cost so that you know how much you have to spend on certain projects or to budget accordingly. It could also mean if you are homesteading while raising small children, if you have projects that you need to do where they cannot be present, plan ahead. If you have a spouse, talk to them about times when you can take turns and work on those projects, or if you have the option of hiring childcare, plan to know exactly what you're going to do during that time so that you can make the most of that time. The next thing that you should do as a new homesteader is to prioritize your projects. So think about the ones that are the most important to you, and that's probably where most of your time is going to go. So for example, I am somebody who tends to procrastinate and I will work on the least important task first. And my husband is really good at looking at a list of projects and deciding which ones we should focus on first, given the amount of time that we have or the resources that we have available to us. So sit down and try to prioritize what are the most important things to you and your family and focus on those and carving out time for them. The next thing that you should do as a new homesteader, and I know this may not apply to everybody, but if you have kids, I highly recommend trying to involve them as much as possible. So this is not only something that will make it a lot more possible to get things done on your homestead and instead of trying to fit everything into the time that your kids are napping or sleeping at night, it also is so important for them. So I can tell you I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and when I work on projects with my kids, it takes a lot longer, it's a lot messier. We have to start and stop a lot of times, but we are building a strong relationship. My kids are learning important skills, and this is a way for them really to build confidence and to discover what they enjoy, what they're good at. And so it's really important to take this time to teach them and to involve them. The next thing that you should do as a new homesteader, especially if you're working on a tight budget, is to shop secondhand. We bought a lot of our tools secondhand, we rented, we borrowed. We really tried to stretch our money as far as we possibly could. We bought a fixer-upper on a couple of acres, and the previous owners left quite a bit of debris and random things in the shed. And so we've used that to repurpose things like fix up our old chicken coop, or we used old T-posts that we found to make our cattle panel trellises in the garden. The next thing, and this is really practical, but somebody told me this advice prior to planning out my garden, and I think it was the best advice that I could possibly get. It is to grow or raise what you will actually eat. So there are certain things that I just don't like. I don't really like green beans, and I think I tried planting a few. They didn't come up. They must have known that I didn't like them. But in all seriousness, if you're going to spend the time planning and planting and caring for a garden, you need to really plant and consider what your family is going to actually eat, because you don't want to waste all of your time and energy and money on something that will just go to waste. I do recommend maybe planting a couple of things that you're not sure if you like, and you could try them, but don't go overboard. Really try to focus on crops that you love. So for us, that was potatoes, sweet potatoes, okra, and then we've planted a bunch of fruit trees that will hopefully start producing in the next few years. And the last thing that you should do as a new homesteader is to consider what serves your family over aesthetics. And so I think this one is really tricky, because I think I'm somebody who loves beautiful things. I love to create a cozy and beautiful home. But when you're homesteading, especially if you are doing this on a budget, you're going to be able to do a lot more and get a lot further if you can focus on what will actually serve your family over what looks like what you saw on Pinterest. So there are certain things that we focused on making really beautiful, but there's other things where we knew that that would not be the best use of our resources. So for example, our chicken coop is a patched up version of the one that was here when we moved to our property. It does not look pretty. It is patched with plywood. We use zip ties to attach the wire, and it's really not that pretty, but it works, and it was within our budget, and we have fresh eggs every single day. There are other projects that we have done around our property, like building out flower beds using reclaimed bricks that we found, and we have really tried to do things. Our ultimate goal is to grow and have food for our family that is healthy. I try to do things organically, and that does not mean that it has to be beautiful. Maybe someday it will look more organized or put together, but for now we're just grateful to have a space that we can grow and preserve food for our family. So today I have addressed a lot of the do's and don'ts for new homesteaders, but I also wanted to provide you with a resource to help you know exactly where to get started. So I spent not just the last year learning these skills, but I spent the 2 years prior to it researching and learning, and have spent so many hours, so many late nights trying to learn everything that I could about these skills. And so I want to help save you time and reduce overwhelm so that you can use the limited time that you have to start building your homestead instead of trying to research for hours. So my friend Jessica of Prairie Creek Homestead created a resource for you that is called the New Homesteader's Handbook. And the New Homesteader's Handbook is a guide designed for new homesteaders. It is geared towards people who do not have a lot of land, so you could do most of these skills within a small backyard. In the book, you will learn about preserving food 6 different ways, including fermentation, canning, dehydrating, among others. How to plant a garden, and that includes tips for starting seeds and organic methods such as companion planting. You'll also learn about simple composting methods and how this will improve the soil quality over time. You'll learn about how to raise backyard chickens, everything from baby chicks to integrating a flock if you have older chickens. You'll learn about how to buy organic whole foods in bulk and how to properly store them so that they stay fresh. You'll learn about cooking from scratch and have over 20 delicious recipes to try that are simple, and many of them have been in Jessica's family for generations. You'll also learn about how to mill your own flour and the benefits of this for long-term storage, as well as the health benefits and the taste. And you'll also be able to learn about sourdough for beginners. So everything from making a starter to establishing a realistic routine when you are busy and don't have a lot of time to devote to it, plus some simple recipes to help you get started. So if you are interested in this resource, I'm going to put a link below in the description box. It is an investment, but it is something that will save you so much time and help you know exactly where to get started. We've included so many links to resources that we use every single day, and hope that this will be really beneficial to you if you are wanting to start homesteading right where you are. Thank you so much for watching, friends. I hope that these homesteading do's and don'ts can help you as you get started on your own slow living journey. Don't forget to check out the new Homesteaders Handbook in the description box below, and I'll see you next time with a cozy fall homesteading vlog.